Hello everyone, welcome to Marlin Chess Kids. Today I show the gameplay by Irina and Elizaveta. And here you have a very beautiful game and you have a very beautiful sacrifice as well and complete in only 23 moves. And let's see how the game play. The game starts with the pawn to e4, e6, d4, d5, and here you have the exchange variation after bishop to d3, then you have d takes e4 and bishop takes e4, and now the knight to f6 and bishop to f3, then c5 was played, and here you have the first 5 moves and the position is equal for both sides. Then the game continues with the knight to e2 and allowing the king to go for the short castling, and now knight to c6, then bishop to e3, and you have a knight to d5. Then bishop just capture the knight and the queen capture the knight. And here the white continue to develop another knight b to c3 and attacking the queen. And here the black capture the pawn at g2. And here will prevent the white to castling, and still the position still equal. Then rook to g1 and queen to f3. And here is the first 10 move. And you can see that even though the white do not castling, but the white is better as the pieces will have more activity to play in the game. So after this, the white play a knight to b5, and here is the critical path for the knight to play to go to knight from c3 to b5, then to c7 and check the king and win the rook. And now the black has difficulty to prevent the square at c7, and the bishop cannot go to d6 and protect the square, as the knight will just capture the bishop, and also the queen cannot move to f4 or g3 to protect the square. And this is because the bishop or the knight or the pawn will be able to capture the queen. So basically, in order to play, the king may need to be moved and to d8 and have the uncastle way. So after this, the best move would be is to play for the black is to move away the rook, or you move away the king to prevent the fork. So in the actual game, the black choose to play a pawn capture d4 pawn, and now the white is clearly better with the knight check, knight to c7 and check the king. Then the king play to king e7. So back to the position after c7. Now it's not to the knight cannot capture the pawn. For example, if the knight b takes a d4, then the knight will capture back, and after capture the queen capture back, queen takes d4, and now queen to f6, and this will be slightly better for the black, or the position will become equal again. So after knight c7 check, the black play king to e7. King d8 will be a better move to defense, and if the knight capture the rook, then you can just move e5 pawn to protect the pawn from being checked. Then after this, you can just come up the bishop, then the king will just go to capture the knight. And after this, the king to e7, the white play a bishop takes d4, bishop take the pawn, and after capture the pawn, here the black play b6. If you move away the rook to b8, then bishop to b5 will be winning. So after bishop to c5 and check the king, and the knight is control the square and the queen is control all the square, and now the king has no place to move. So the other way to play is to move the king to f6, and after this the knight will continue to check at e8, and now the king will have only two places, and if the king moves to the back square at f5, and the king is in the center of the board and is very easily to go for the checkmate. So you bring another knight for the check, knight to g3 and check the king, and now the king have all the red square, which is a bad, and will be checkmate. So example, if you move the king to e5, then you have a bishop from the back check, and now if the bishop capture again, then you have a queen checkmate, capture the bishop and checkmate. So you have a many mating idea for the king in the center of the board. So in the actual game, the black do not move the rook, instead move a b6 to allow the bishop to be actively moved to a6 and attack the knight and go for the exchange. So after this, the knight just capture the rook, and now bishop to a6 to attack the knight, and bishop to c3. The reason why the bishop to a6 is after capture the knight, and if the queen capture, then the queen will capture the knight, and if the king capture, then the black will win the bishop. Therefore, the white move away the bishop to c3 first, and after this f6 was played, and the queen played to e2 and preparing for the long castling. So after this, the black play king to f7, and now queen to e3 was played, and trying to go for the exchange, as the white is winning the rook. After this, the queen just capture the knight, and now queen capture the bishop, then queen to f4, prevent the king for go for the long castling. Then queen to g4 and go for the exchange, since the black is winning the rook. And now the queen back to b8 to trying to capture the knight, and here the white is clearly winning, and with here with the long castling, now the bring the rook to into the board and attack the black, And here, this is a critical path for the rook to attack from a1 to d1, then to d7, and finally to capture and attack the square at e7. And in the actual game, queen a8 was played, and here is a complete winning for the white. If another suggestion, if you can play, is if your queen move to c8, then the queen will go to h5 and have a diagonal attack the king and control all the square. So example, if the queen play queen to h5, then if you move the g6 pawn, the white can just continue to attack and capture the pawn. And if the pawn capture, then the queen will just capture the rook and winning another extra one pawn. And now if the queen capture the knight, then the queen can just capture the pawn at f6, and now leaving the king to go to e8 or g8, and it will be checkmate. So if the king go to g8, then the queen will just capture the pawn and check. And now if the king cannot move to any square because the queen is check the king, the bishop is diagonal attack, and the queen is control another square. So the only way the king can prevent the check is to move the bishop, and the queen will capture and they have the checkmate. So if the king move to e8, and the same thing will happen with the queen capture the pawn or diagonal attack, and the rook is control the square. So the only way for the king to save is to queen to e7, and you have a bishop to f6, a diagonal checkmate. So if you capture with the rook, and if you don't use the pawn to capture, if you capture the knight first, and here you have a discover attack and a check. So another simple way to play is the rook will capture the pawn and you have a double attack, and also control the square. So after this, if your king go to g8, then the simple way will be the queen to f7 and checkmate. And same goes that if your king move to g7, then you have a queen to f7 and checkmate. So you have many ideas for the checkmate. So after long castling, the queen capture the knight, and now in the actual game, the rook go to d7 and attack the king, and after attack the king, the knight prevent the check. And after this come another beautiful sacrifice by the bishop. The bishop takes f6, and now the bishop can capture the knight or capture the pawn. So bishop takes f6 was played, and now the checkmate is unavoidable. So in the actual game, the black do not capture back the bishop, instead move the queen to c6, and after this you have the white mate in 3. I give a couple of seconds out to figure how the white continue to play and mate in 3. Well, congratulations for those who found the answer, and for those who like to enjoy the show, here are the brilliant move continuation for the checkmate. In the actual game, after the black play rook takes e7, and here come with another sacrifice, and the black resign the game in the move 23. So after rook takes the knight and check the king, and now the king has only 2 options. And if you capture with the bishop, then you have the next move queen to g5 and checkmate the king. And if you go to g8, then you have a rook capture and check the king. And now if the bishop capture, then you have the queen capture and checkmate the game. So back to this position, and if you use the bishop to capture the rook, then you continue check with the queen. And now the king only have one place to move, that is king to e8, and you checkmate with the queen by queen takes the bishop, queen takes e7, checkmate. So after this, rook takes e7 check, and this is a very beautiful checkmate, and you have a many beautiful ending in this position. And with this, thank you.